Hey guys, this is the second part to Faith and Works, and in this one I'm just going to go in further detail of examples of faith works that is ordained by God or led by God, and works that is led by carnal thinking. Pretty much I really just want to go into detail of James chapter 2 verse 20 through 24, where it talks about Abraham and how his works were ordained by God and his works were pretty much approved. Abraham's faith was justified by his works that was led by God. So we all know the story about Abraham and how God told him, he was testing him and told him to sacrifice his son Isaac. But in that work, in that faith work, see, Abraham had no idea that he was being tested by God. All he knew is this is what God has told him, and he was being obedient to that. That's completely walking out of faith, because he was going to sacrifice his son, his only son. Abraham didn't have a clue that, God had already made the provision, in him being obedient to what God said before he went to, before he provided the provision. So I'm going to specifically read James chapter 2 verses 2 verses 21 and 22. Okay. So here we go. Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered Isaac his son on the altar? Do you see that faith was working together with his works, and by works faith was made perfect? So in that, it's pretty much clarifying that, Abraham was justified by his works because it was led by God through obedience and yieldedness through him. So that's just a clear example and a very good example of what faith, when your works is hand in hand with faith, when your works is actually working with your faith. And I feel like a lot of times we get that misconstrued with like a carnal type of faith. Oh, well, I got to do something. And we make it about what we have to do rather what God has already done. Okay, so on the flip side, another good example that the Holy Spirit gave me of, carnal works is from King Saul. And not the Saul that was who is now Paul, but the Saul that David replaced. So sorry, I had a brain fart. But yeah, so I'm going to go back to all the way back to 1 Samuel chapter 15, and if you really want to get like full insight on the entire story of the disobedience of Saul, I would suggest that you go read 1 Samuel, the whole chapter of 15, 1 Samuel 15. So, but I'm kind of just going to take bits and pieces from it. So specifically in 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3, God told Saul to go and attack Amalek, the city of Amalek, and utterly destroy everything, to just annihilate everything. So if you go further down to verse 8, it says what Saul did. Saul took his men to the city of Amalek, and they went to attack, but Saul didn't listen to the specific words that God told him. So verse 8, it says, he took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and Agag was the king of the Amalekites. So Saul, he spared Agag, and then it says the best of sheep. So he spared Agag, the best of sheep, the oxen, the lambs, all the livestock that he deemed was, good. The good part of the livestock, the best part of the sheep and the oxen. He took all their livestock and he spared King Agag, who was the king of the Amalekites. So Saul blatantly just disobeyed or disregarded, you know, the specific ordinance of what God told him. Saul wasn't operating out of obedience, and he wasn't yielded completely to the word that God told him to do. God told him to destroy everything, including the people, including the livestock. Every single thing in the city of Amalekite should have been destroyed. God did not tell him to spare King Agag. God did not tell him to take any of their livestock. But this was Saul's good idea. See, Saul was thinking carnally. He was carnally minded. He was thinking of his carnal works and how it seemed like a good idea. Oh, let me just take God, he's going to destroy it anyway. So let me just take, let me just take their best livestock, and I'm gonna just spare the king, but destroy everything else. God didn't tell him to do that. God told him specifically to destroy everything in that city. So this is a good example of how it is to carnally work, or put carnal works, or try to attach carnal works to faith. This is why it's so important when it comes to works with faith. You have to completely be in alignment with God and what he's doing. You have to completely be in alignment with God, and you have to you have to be out of a heart of obedience and yieldedness to God. Completely obedient, completely yielded to God, so you can know what to do. Because carnal works is dead works. If we continue on to verse 10, it says, "Now the word of the Lord came to Samuel, saying, I greatly regret," and this is the Lord saying, "I greatly regret that I have set up Saul as king, for he has turned back from following me and has not performed my commandments." So, this, and then it says it grieved Samuel. So it grieved God and it grieved Samuel when we are disobedient, when we're going in a way that we think is wise in our own opinion. Because God knows all things. He knows, what you should do and what not to do. God is outside of time. We're in it. We don't know all things. We're not wise in our own opinion. So it grieves God when we're not yielded to him. We're not obedient to him, because he knows what's best for us and he wants the very best for us. But we have to be completely yielded and obedient to what he's doing, what he's saying, and diligently be obedient to the last word he gave us. And until he gives us a new one, we still got to be good stewards over that very last word that he gave us until the next one. So God is always speaking, always leading. We're always going to be progressing. We're always going to be going from glory to glory. But we have to stay in obedience and yieldedness to him.